regularly scheduled board meeting. We'll start off with the flag salute. So Trustee Dow Jensen, will you lead us?
Hand over heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, fellow board members, please take a look at the agenda. Please let me know if you have any changes or additions. We're good. All right, perfect. Next up, we will move on to item number 6, special presentation, starting with our superintendent report.
Yes, good evening, board, and good evening, everybody. It's so nice to have such a big crowd out tonight. I know most of you are here for the superintendent's report, so I'll go ahead and get started with that. One of the things that I like to do is show off some of the things that have been taking place since the last time we got together. And so lots of great parent and community activities at school. So this is Pioneers Back to School Ice Cream Social. These are some middle schoolers from our Harvest Grove Virtual Academy that got together to play Brentwood Opoly at the library. So fun way to get to know each other. Mrs. Jenkins, her advanced computer science class at Edna Hill, they are planning on building miniature golf holes. So that starts at the very beginning. And right now they're working with these hummingbird robotics kits to help construct those. And so they're learning about them. So that was fun to see. We're in fall sports time. So I want to thank all of our coaches who are playing such an important role in our young student athletes' lives. And here's a volleyball team from Adams and the wrestling team there at Edna Hill. And we really appreciate all the work that goes into those students. We're also working hard on our community celebrations. This is Mrs. Clark's class out at Mary Casey Black, who was learning about families around the world. And the day before, they were building on a story that they had read from about a family in Pakistan. So great lesson. We had an opportunity to come together with some leadership students from the Byron School District as well. And so I want to thank everybody who played a role in bringing together leadership students from Edna Hill and Excelsior and Adams for this leadership development day out there. Great opportunity. Also excited to see some advancements in our STEAM programs that we have. And so this is Adams Middle School, Mr. McKnight, who's one of our science teacher, doing a coding class out with his students out there. So great job, Mr. McKnight. I want to thank everybody who came together for the Brentwood Schools and Family Partnership meeting that we started at the end of last school year with the opportunity to increase parent participation and partnerships within our schools. So it's great to see so many staff members and parents coming together for that. I want to thank Chill Coffee, which has been a great supporter. They came out and donated a whole bunch of items out to Cray Elementary. So I really want to thank them for supporting us as well. If you've been around our schools, you've seen that we are very deep into FOSS science around. It's our new adoption. And so these are some Mary Casey Black fourth graders looking around how do they light a light bulb and what's needed for that. So our GATE program has kicked off this year, and so Ms. Jessica set up a back-to-school GATE barbecue that took place out at Veterans Park to bring those students together to socialize and get to know each other. So great job to her. We continue with the parent activity. So this is the Bulldog Bash out at Brentwood Elementary. It's a little bit hard to see in this picture, but they also set out collections for each class to collect donations for Maui in doing this. So I want to acknowledge them for that hard work as part of their celebration. Also, story time at Ron Nunn. So great opportunity for teachers and some parents to get dressed up out there and come enjoy stories together out in the field. So thanks to everybody who participated in that. If you hadn't seen the eggs in Mrs. Lyman's class earlier, this was a very exciting time. So the chicks hatched on August 29th. They're very cute. So there was it was a little bit of a disruptive day when this happened, but it was very fun. I want to thank the Liberty Transportation Company for coming out and helping to work with our students on what to do in case of bus emergencies. So that type of drilling is very important that we do every year for students that are going to go on field trips and so forth. I also want to thank Dr. Geisman for donating some fitness equipment out to Edna Hill Middle School. That was very generous of them, and it will be well used in our physical education department. this is the time of year where we're getting to head out to science camp. I think it's one of the best things that our sixth graders get to do. It's sometimes their first opportunity to be a little bit independent. And I want to thank all of the teachers and parents. Ms. Bustilloso, I know you played a big role in making sure that everybody got out there safely. So thank you for doing that. Just a fun time, and we're excited that all of our middle schools get to go. So also continuing on with identity and diversity in our community celebrations. So these are some Marsh Creek students looking at how are we the same, how are we different. So great thing for them. I want to thank 511 who came out and sponsored Walk and Roll to Adams Middle School, trying to encourage students to come to school with alternative ways other than cars, and also do it safely. And so there's also a science component where they could make smoothies using stationary bikes and powering the blenders that way. So that was fun. Spirit Day and Rally taking place at Edna Hill Middle School. So these are the leadership students that put on these events and get students excited. So great job to them. And then this is Ms. Comprelli's class at Loma Vista School, creating self-portraits, talking about their interests, values, and beliefs. And then I was able to see this lesson in Ms. Melhan's class. Her third graders were looking at when rain falls on different natural materials, which ones absorb and which ones repel the water going forth. So that was fun to watch them, real excited. And then here's Adams Middle School getting their opportunity to go out to Mission Springs out near Santa Cruz, and getting to explore their sixth grade science camp as well. And then I was able to attend. This was a wonderful event that the Guerin fifth grade teachers put on. Students did individual September 11th projects, and then students from the school and parents came around, and students individually presented out in the park area. So there were literally 100 presentations going on at the same time that you could walk around and learn about different aspects of September 11th. So great job to them. And then I really loved this. And so the Brentwood Elementary fifth grade students also did a replica of a very famous piece of art that's at the 911 Memorial Museum. And so I thought it really turned out pretty there. So that's my report for this evening.
Wonderful. You have a comment? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I like it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I always look forward to your superintendent report.
No, but the clapping, that was
there
nice.
You go.
Yeah.
Let's give them another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. All right. Next up, we have board member comments or committee reports.
Myself and Dr. Eaton had a transportation meeting last week. Good news is we've got some brand new buses that came in. We got several more that will be coming in the next few months. The bad news is we have nobody to drive them. We're 6 drivers down at this point. And I'm sure there was some routes that had to be switched and changed because of the shortage. So they're working very hard over there to get people on board to drive the buses. Unfortunately, from day one to the end, it takes about 6 months for us to get a driver trained because of all the state regulations and things like that. They have started to upload their new tracking system for the kids. They hope to have that up and running fairly soon, where they'll be able to track who's on the bus and if they're on the right bus and what route they should be on, so on and so forth. And I wasn't aware of it, but apparently we're having a fundraiser at this meeting for blankets. So if anybody wants a blanket because it's freezing in here, let us know.
Okay.
That being said, thank you very much.
Love it. Any other reports?
No, but they do make a version of shorts that go all the way down to your foot. I want to try those.
I didn't know we were having ice cream and cake. I thought it was just cake, but that's cool.
All right. If there's no other comments, let's move on to item number 7, which is our public comments. At this time, the public is permitted to address the school board on items that are on the consent calendar, requests for future agenda items, and items that are not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and while we encourage your comments, unfortunately, state law prevents us from discussing items that are not on our meeting agenda. Public comments can be made at this time or during the appropriate agenda item. Please know that we do take them very seriously, and if appropriate, staff will follow up. Can I get a
I
motion?
move that we open public comment.
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Do want to note that we have received one written comment, which will be posted online tomorrow. And I do have one speaker card in front of me, and I will call to the podium Jill.
Hi. I don't really have anything written prepared, but I didn't want to wait a month to address. My name is Jill Newmeyer, and I'm a special education teacher at Pioneer. And I just wanted to address, I'm not speaking on behalf of myself, but on dear friends and colleagues who are campus supervisors. And I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, you probably already know, but just to emphasize that we are very short-staffed. And from what I understand, that's every school. One of the main reasons might be because we pay them $15 at 50 cents an hour. Neighboring districts start at least 17. That's not a lot of money, but when you're trying to get somebody to come in for an hour and a half to 2 hours on a daily basis and commit to the supervision and the safety of our students, we may want to think about letting them know how important we think their job is. So, and then on top of that, the state law that just passed that fast food workers starting next year will now make $20 an hour. I think that our noon supervisors should make at least what people working at fast food restaurants, because what they do is so hard and so important. The safety, the care, they're not just watching them eat lunch, they're building relationships. So I just want the board to think about, HR to think about, what can we do to attract people and show the ones that we do have that we care and that they're important. That's all.
Excuse me, I didn't have a card to sign. Could I make a statement?
Yes.
Yes.
I just need the name for the record.
Paul Jarvis. Yes, I did, but this is something else. Okay. I hate to be a killjoy, but some things have to be said, and I like a party like everybody else does. But I have to say that 42% of high school students suffer with mental health issues. I hope you've all read my comments outlining 12 core reasons why I think this is the case. And many of the reasons noted apply to this grade level, because people don't go into high school and then all of a sudden have mental health issues. That happens coming up the line. That said, the greatest assault on the physical and mental well-being of our youth has been and continues to be the national COVID response, which is now being resurrected. The CDC has just issued a recommendation that everyone 6 months and older get a booster. Their website lists various benefits peppered with phrases like, it is estimated that, the data signals that, it is expected to provide, and data monitoring shows. They still don't know with certainty after 3.5 years what this vaccine does. Today, the CDC states that almost 700 million doses have been given, and monitoring establishes a favorable safety profile. How they determine an acceptable risk when they don't know the long-term effects of COVID is a mystery. Here's what independent sources tell us. We know that no child through age 19 without serious comorbidities has ever died from COVID in the United States. CDC notes that about 600 have died, and that's out of a population of 73 million children. We know that the VAERS system, which feeds CDC data, is extremely unreliable regarding adverse event reporting because doctors have been ostracized for reporting. We know that alternate and effective early therapies and basic health protocols have been restricted or downplayed. We know that 22,000 people have died within 2 days of taking the drug. We know that COVID causes hospitalizations and death statistics were wildly overstated and driven by profit motives. We know that instances of sudden cardiac arrest, fibrous blood clots, paralysis, and tissue inflammation are noted side effects. We know that COVID drug components have been detected in mother's milk fed to infants. We know that the fertility rates of young men drop after the drug. We know that CDC and FDA have been compromised by political pressures and corporate profit interests to push out the COVID drugs. We know that the CEOs of major drug firms have become instant billionaires. We know that social isolation and school closures were unnecessary and ineffective. We know that masks don't work. A simple test that any high school perform would prove this, which begs the question. We know that psychological issues, including suicide, drug use, declining and stagnant educational performance, and families plunged into poverty are conditions that must be acknowledged as side effects. We're living in a treatment versus cure, medical and political culture. Parents should be skeptical and consult their doctors about the needs of their family rather than following the dictates of compromised institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just making sure you got the name. You're good. All right. I have no other speaker cards. So at this time,
Make a
I'll need
motion that we
to
close public comment.
I'll second.
All right. I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Next up, item number 8, consent items.
I make a motion that we approve consent items 8.1 through 8.11.
I second.
All right. I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Next up, item number 9, which is our hearings and appeals. Can I have a motion to open item number 9.0, notice of public hearing, notification of compliance with Education Code Section 60119 for funds received under the pupil textbook and instructional materials incentive program grades K through 12 and or funds for instructional materials from any state source fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
So moved.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Item number 10.
Nope.
Sorry. Now, close it.
Oh, sorry. Now I have a motion to close it.
So if anybody has.
I'll make a motion that we close 9.0.
So
So at this point, it's a public hearing. So if anybody has anything to share about that, they could.
okay. So we opened it. So if anyone has anything to share related to item number 9, you may do so now. All right.
I'll make a
Hearing none.
motion that we close public hearings.
All right. I have a motion to close public hearing for item number 9.0. I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Eden, for that catch. Moving on to item number 10, report out of closed session. There are none. And now moving on to item number 10.1, expulsion of student number 08-2023-01.
I move that we accept the stipulated expulsion of student number 08-2023-01.
I'll make a second on that.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, we have item number 10.2, approval to name new school site after Isaac R. Montanez. All right. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Eden.
Okay, so it wasn't the superintendent's report that people were here for. We are thrilled to have all of you here today as we celebrate something really extraordinary. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Dane Eaton, and I'm the proud superintendent of the Brentwood School District, and this is my 11th year. And certainly today we're celebrating somebody who's had one of the most profound influences on me since I've been here. And so it's my honor to start off over here with Mr. Geddes and Mr. Gursky, who were part of our Blue Ribbon panel to look at all the wonderful recommendations that came in from our community. And so I don't know, Mr. Gursky or Mr. Geddes, if you have anything that you'd like to say, but we also have some panel members here that would like to say things as well.
Well, I hope that there will be opportunity for other people to speak as well if they like. I would like to say something though, because of the relationship. Can you hear me? The relationship that I've had with Ike for, I think, I was going back figuring 55 years. I think we've known each other. We've taught together. We have, he was in the bilingual program and worked with kids that I taught. He's always supported the music program when I was doing music. We team taught. He was my principal when I was an elementary instructor. And he encouraged me to go to the camps and to the village and act as the translator for families that were Spanish speaking only. And, you know, it was always really clear in my mind with Ike that he had in his priorities his God, his country, his family, his community, and always the kids of Brentwood. And especially in his heart for the bilingual kids, or the Spanish-speaking kids. He would talk about his days in the barrios of Mesa, and he's part of my familia, and I love it. I'm glad we made this choice.
I was honored to be a part of this group and to help in selecting Mr. Martinez. And yes, he is still Mr. Martinez to me because he was my principal at Garin. Not comfortable yet saying Ike. It took me 4 years to call Mr. Geddes Emil, so give me some time, I'll get there. But I couldn't think of anybody better. Anytime somebody says Mr. Montanez's name or anytime I see him, I just think of his big smile, his warm nature. You know, that being said, he was a principal, so if I was visiting Mr. Montanez, it was probably because I did something wrong. But he always made you feel good about fessing up to what you did. So I've always appreciated that. I love seeing Mr. Montanez around town as well as Mr. Geddes. And I'm not going to say that, you know, I'm the common denominator here, but we've now named a nice theater building after my fourth grade teacher. We're now going to name a school after my fourth and fifth grade principal. So, you know, if you were at Garin in the mid 80s, there's a good chance you might have a building named after yourself at some point. So thank you so much for all you've done for not only our educational community, but our community as a whole. So thrilled and honored to be a part of this.
I'd like to invite Mary Casey Black to come up and say a few words on behalf of her participation in the committee.
Hi. I'm truly, truly honored to be able to speak this evening for Mr. Ike Montanez. Ike, I can't think of a person any more deserving to be honored by having a school named after them than you. I first met Ike in 1973 when, as a new teacher, I taught a class designated as a bilingual cluster classroom at Brentwood Elementary. Ike was a teacher at Garin School and director of the Los Amigos program, which was Title VII, Ike? Title VII. And since Bill Bristow was a master at always getting staff members to wear numerous hats, he was also halftime principal of that school at the time. Ike's Los Amigos program that he brought to the Brentwood district was an exemplary program that paired English and Spanish-speaking students who not only learned from one another in class, but also extended their learning into real life by spending time with each other's families, experiencing and developing understanding and appreciation of a culture different from their own. It was an amazing program, and many of these students remain lifelong friends today. It truly made a difference in the lives of children, in the lives of families, and the lives of the community. In Ike's classroom, I was in awe. Here was this new teacher, had no idea what she was doing, especially in a bilingual classroom. Thank you, Carol Chavez, for saving my life. I would watch as Ike seamlessly wove instruction through two languages, simultaneously building capacity and mutual respect of students from both languages. Always with heart, always with a smile, a gentle chuckle, and always with the attitude, I believe in you. My Brentwood school students were included in many of the family nights that were hosted as part of the Los Amigos program. And here too, Ike, I learned so much from you. I learned how integral personal connections were in the educational process and learned how to build community, not just in a classroom, but among families and within the larger community. But the most lasting thing I learned from having the privilege of working with you, Ike, was to always keep the child at the center of everything you do. Ike completed the full circle in his career, going from teacher to director to principal to teacher. When at the end of his career, he established an English learning program to accelerate students' content learning in their primary language while simultaneously learning English. I again watched in awe as children flourished, became confident in their learning, and celebrated the achievement of academic bilingualism. You know, when Mary Casey Black Elementary opened, a teacher wrote to me, "Working at your namesake school is an honor and privilege, and we will strive to create a school that will live up to the standards you have set." I know the teachers at Isaac R. Montañez School will feel the same way, and in true Brentwood fashion, will strive to create a school environment that is built upon compassion, respect, and celebration of success for all students. Congratulations, Ike. It couldn't be a finer person to hit this honor.
I'd like to ask Dr. Doug Adams to come on up.
Good evening. Dana, I did superintendent reports for 16 years in your chair, and I never got any applause for any of my reports. I would like to thank the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to sit on the committee that is here. Mary and I were served on. It was indeed an honor. And I also want to compliment the board. You created a very transparent, open process for it, and it was much appreciated by those of us that were asked to participate. So thank you, board. Excuse me, my allergies are kicking up. In 1991, I returned to Brentwood to be superintendent of schools. As most of you know, I grew up here, went through the schools, but when I came back to Brentwood, I needed to reacquaint myself with the needs of Brentwood students. Most of you, though, may not know that my mom was a teacher in the district for over 35 years. Mary was one of her students, to make an example. And when I came back, I knew that she was already a colleague of Ike, that they had worked together, they were friends, and that they had volunteered in the community together. I know that firsthand because I helped load some of those pickup trucks that they took to all the different places all over Brentwood. My mom was reluctant to give me advice about what I should do as a new superintendent. Don't grin, Emil. But as she said to me, you need to be your own person. But I did ask her, who should I talk to better understand the needs of students, especially those students who are acquiring English as a second language? She immediately said, go see Ike. She said to me that Ike was the person that she relied on as a teacher for guidance and help for those students who were struggling in school, especially those students who were trying to acquire English as a second language. She then paused and said something to me that I will never forget. She said, he speaks from the heart when it comes to kids. You can trust what he has to say. And he has always been there for his students and their families. And he always asks, what do they need? And how can I make that happen? So I went to go see Ike. In our first conversation, typical Ike, he did not want to talk about himself. He praised the work of his colleagues, of the principals, of the district administration, the Board of Education. But I knew better. I knew that he was at the forefront of the effort to improve education in this district for those children. It was his skills and his relationship with people that was making a difference, especially with those students who had difficulty learning. I continued to rely on his advice and guidance for the next 16 years. His knowledge and feel for student needs in this community was especially important when he became a member, of the Board of Education. We were being flooded with all kinds of programs and sound familiar? And requirements from the state of California, including a lot having to do with bilingual education. Can you imagine what it meant to us to have someone like Ike on our board to say, no, that's not good for the students of Brentwood, or that is good for the students of Brentwood? Ike knew. And I know that those board members, those administrators, those school principals, we're so grateful for your counsel and guidance as a board member. Ike, I thank you. This community and this school district have benefited greatly from individuals who understand the importance of giving back for as long as I can remember. The staff of the Brentwood School District has given back to the community by asking donations from parents and service organizations and local businesses for needy families. The staff would volunteer on their own to gather the materials, do it after school. They would go out on weekends, and they would distribute things to needy areas of this community. A key to that effort were a few individuals who were deeply connected to the community and knew firsthand those families who are in need. That is critical. You can gather all the donations you want, but if they're not getting to the right families, it's a mistake. And Ike knew. He was connected. He was connected also to local businesses, to city council, to community, to service organizations. Ike would go out and he would say, we need help. And everybody responded because it was Ike. They knew they could trust what he was asking for, but more importantly, they knew it was going to get into the right families and do good. They understood that because it was much like what my mom said in 1991 about Ike. We all knew that when it came to children, Ike spoke from the heart. We all knew that if there was a need in this community, Ike would find a way to make it happen and to help them. And finally, we just simply knew that he would speak from his heart every time that we were there. Ike, congratulations. This is a wonderful, wonderful night for you and your family here. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. So Emil and or Steve, is there anything else that you want to add or say?
A couple of people asked if they might speak, and if you would like to address the group, please take your turn and introduce yourself. And we probably know you, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Paul Ramirez. I'm a resident of Antioch, but I was actually born in Brentwood on Minnesota Avenue in 1951, right next to where Bristol School is at, actually. I'm one of 10 children who all went through the Brentwood School District. As I was leaving after Diablo Valley College and going to San Jose State, my mother was telling me about, my mother, Alicia Ramirez, was telling me about this young a teacher that was dynamic, and being a good son, I always listened to my mom. That was during the Chicano movement, so there was a lot of radical, like, we got to get things done like today, not next week. But when I did meet Ike, I saw this very humble dignified, quiet, powerful, brown guy who looked like me, which is very, very important. We all know how important that is. And back then, the foundation of Brentwood was basically farm workers in terms of the community that were Mexicanos, Mexican-American, and then growers, farmers, and families. And that combination built Brentwood. But education was key. And so my mom, in terms of working with Ike, one of the first things they tackled was about, if you're going to try to teach the child, you better teach the parents, especially if they're Spanish speaking, they're coming from Mexico. And so that started a very, very dynamic movement to make sure that all children got the education, even if English was not the primary language, which is a very, very important fact. And so one of the first things that Ike and I think my mom did as they went around to visit families was to tell them Christmas vacation is not a month long. Don't take your kids to Mexico for a month. That used to be the standard. So they cut back and it got to the parents, very big factor in education for that. Also about that girls need to learn just as much as the boys. And so that was the type of impact that I saw and heard, which was very, very important for our communities. I've served with many organizations. I've sat on a board with Ike. And I guess if I could try to articulate what he means to me, is that we were on the board of the One Day at a Time. We're on the founding board. We used to have monthly meetings. I would come from Pittsburgh at that time. And I remember as I was getting into Brentwood, going by Safeway at the streets over that way. And it was early in the morning. I think it was a Saturday. I think our meeting was at 8. And I seen Ike. I was at a stop sign and I seen Ike because he lives right at Curtis, Broderick area. And he was walking to the meeting. And I saw him. I said, oh, man, okay, I'm going to pick him up. But as I sat at the stop sign, I watched him walking, and his walk was a very noble walk. Long strides, energy, purpose to get to the meeting. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not going to pick him up. This is his mission. And what hit me is I realized, I said, he's walking the path. He's walking the path of God, which is to give, not take, not receive, but to give of himself, of his educational background, of his position in the community and in the world. And so when I saw him, as I passed him by, he was focused walking. And then when I saw him get to the meeting, I looked at him and go, how you doing, Ike? Great. So the name of the school for you is an honor for me. It's an honor for my family. It's an honor for the whole community. And it should be an honor in terms of as a humanitarian, in terms of what you do, what you have done, and what you continue to do. And so for that, I want to thank you, congratulate you, and bless your family. Thank you.
Godly, I want to start off with a story too. If you don't know Ike, he likes to walk. He does a lot of walking at one time. He's a tennis player. He still plays tennis to this day, which just amazes me. Well, I was a young Latino growing up here in Brentwood, and at some point I had an opportunity to build an agency and organization. And I'll be honest with you, it was a struggle. It was a struggle to get people to believe that you could come from Village Drive, grow up in a community that a lot of times was stereotyped, and come back and make a difference. And I remember standing at the old Beacon gas station right there next to the old Central Mart in Village Drive, going into Village. And I was putting in gas. And you're probably going to remember this. And Ike was taking one of his walks. And I saw him walking by, and I was putting in gas. I go, hey, Mr. Montañez. because everybody in the neighborhood knew Mr. Montañez. Either they came up to him or they ran because we all went to school. He was our principal. But in saying that is he stopped. Johnny, how you doing? Da, 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 da. We're talking. I want you to be on my board. I want you to be on my board for One Day at a Time. It's a youth organization that I'm trying to build, and that we want to make a difference in kids' lives here in Far East County. And Ike was like, really? And we started talking a little bit. And from then, which is many, many years ago, until now, he's still on our advisory board, and he still guides and gives advice to our organization to continue to do the work that we do. And I say that because a lot of people didn't just open their hearts to want to work with us. I've always noticed that a lot of times people want to be on the winners. They don't want to help to build those winners. And Ike is real big on supporting those that are starting from not only from the top, but from the bottom. And I really admired that and appreciate that. But many other things. One, he was my principal. I was in his office a lot. I wasn't that kid, right? But at the same time, he's always been respected and admired by our community. One of the things that really catches my heart with Ike too, a lot of people don't know, but he had a foundation. Ike was giving scholarships, and I hope I don't say it right, but the Montañez Foundation that he had, and he was giving students at the high school level scholarships to go to college. A lot of people don't know Ike was doing that, and he was doing that out of kindness heart. He would do fundraising events and gather money to give to students. He sat, like I said, on our board for many years. He also sat in the Village Drive board. A lot of people don't realize that he was on the Village Drive board. That's huge. For young people that are walking through Village Drive and to see Ike Montañez, who was the principal of their parents and also some of their grandparents, to see him there, but also see that they could be there at some point in their life was an inspiration and inspiring to a lot of people. And I hope that Ike knows that. Ike is not only a friend of mine, he's become a father and a mentor. I'll be honest with you, when I ran for school board, when I ran for city council, anything I've ever done, I have to call Ike first. People don't realize decisions that I make, don't make them on my own. I've been raised to understand to talk to mentors or talk to my elders and get that advice in that direction. And because of Ike, he encouraged me to run. And I'll be honest with you, there was a time where I was going to make a decision and Ike says, you can't do that, right thing to do. And because of that, it really helped me make the right decisions and continue to move forward. So I just want to say, Ike, not only have you impacted me, but you've impacted thousands of kids, not only in this community, but many communities. And for a school that's going to be on Longtree Way on the northeast of Brentwood, where we all know that's old Brentwood, right? For this man to have his name in that portion of that community is an honor, not only for his family, but for the community that still lives there, that understands and knows the name of Ike Montañez. So I just want to tell you, Ike, we love you, and thank you very much for everything you've done.
On behalf of Johnny Rodriguez, I'd also like to, as Johnny said, he was on the board, and I'd like to apologize to all the people he told to be here at 6 o'clock because he apparently forgot that the meeting doesn't start till 7 o'clock for the public. So that's the type of board meeting here. So on behalf of Johnny, I do apologize to Chairman.
Jose, did you want to say something? Okay.
Hello, hola, mi nombre es José Carlos Fajardo. I am let me start. I immigrated to this country when I was 3. And when I came here, I was the first one. And all I saw was white kids. And the thing was that when I started learning in elementary school, I had to learn English at the same time as learning Spanish. And it was incredibly difficult. And I want to thank Ike because when I went to school here, I was the one translating my mom helped me translate all my homework and from English to Spanish. We would sit there with a dictionary, and translate every word. And that was incredibly difficult. And that's how we were taught. And we didn't have anybody, no resources, no one. And that was the part that, when I started going to school, and I wasn't like Johnny, I wasn't getting in trouble. But I was a kid that grew up on Minnesota Avenue. I grew up there, lived in a cherry orchard all my life. And then when they sold the cherry orchard, my family moved to behind Central Mart and Village Drive. And so it was a completely different, but you know, growing up in Brentwood and you see all the same kids and everything, and you just want to make sure you do something good and come out. And so Ike was always there for us. And I wanted him to know that because we were, you know, we kind of felt alone at the time. And so it meant a lot to us, and especially those long bus drives, because I tell you, it took me an hour to get home and an hour to get back. And, you know, and I only lived less than 15 minutes away. So we had to drive all the way to Sand Creek and come back. But Ike, I just want to say it is an honor. Thank you for everything, for that, what you've done for us. I tried to do the best I could in my life. I became a journalist. I've actually gone with Sergeant Dudek on trips, if he doesn't remember. Oh, you do? I do, yeah. I will be celebrating my 29th year working as a photojournalist for the East Bay Times, Contra Costa Times. We won a Pulitzer. I'm a member and I won a Pulitzer. So we did it. And I want to thank you for all that, because it was hard, but you know what, mijo? Like you always said, mijo, hard work. You could do it. Thank you.
Well, board, it seems like we have a pretty supportive crowd in terms of the recommendation here. I just want to take a minute to say that, you know, one of the things that the committee looked at was just an outpouring of support for Ike, both not from the people that you heard today, but also many other people who recommended his name. I, for one, as superintendent, would be honored to have his name on one of our schools. And so I wholeheartedly endorse that recommendation. Just from a practical standpoint, we have cake. And so what we'd like to do is, after the vote, is take a quick break to have some cake. Mr. Montanez, if after the vote, did you want to introduce your family at all at that time? Okay, so we'll give you just a couple minutes to do that afterwards, and you say whatever you want, but I don't want to put you on the spot to give a speech. And then the second practical point is that once the school is open, we'll have a dedication. Usually it's after like the first month that it's open, and then we can have a full ceremony in dedicating the school to you and your family. And before you leave, where's Danielle? Is Danielle back there? Danielle, stand up. Ike, I want to make sure you meet Danielle Dobbin. Danielle is the principal of what's currently known as Lone Tree School. And so that's been hired. And so maybe that'll change here in just a minute. Okay.
I'm going to jump ahead before they call the vote, because I would like to be honored to please make the motion to dedicate our new school to Isaac Montanez.
I would be honored to second.
All right. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. But first of all, I do want to thank God and give him all the glory. I've always tried to follow the commandment to love God and love my neighbors as myself. My neighbors were the Brentwood Union School District and the community of Brentwood. And it's been an honor to serve for 52 years in this community. I want to introduce my family, my wife, Jeannie. Honey, you don't have to get up. She just had knee replacement surgery, so my daughter Mimi Montanez Drake, who is a teacher at Independence High School. My grandson Joseph, who graduated from Liberty in 2010 and from the Air Force Academy in 2014.
So it's an honor to have Captain Joseph Drake here with us this evening, and his wife Bree, and the great grandchildren Grace and Michael and Gia. You know, you don't get to this point in life without all the support and help from your colleagues and your family. Yeah, so I want to thank this board. I want to thank the Brentwood Union School District. I want to thank the Brentwood community for allowing me to serve all these years in this community. It's been a joy. It's been a joy. And I really appreciate the kind words from Mary and from Doug, from Paul, from Johnny. It's El Joven Fajardo. There he is. Also, I have many of my former students here, and I really appreciate that they showed up. There's some from my very first class from 1971-72, fourth grade at the Guerin School. And I want to have them stand up, please. And there's some others from the other classes also. Eloy, where are you? Here he is and his wife. Yeah. And over there on the other side from the other classes too. But that class of 71, 72 kind of set the standard, kind of the pace. And they taught me a lot how to continue with the other classes that I had all those years. I had a little paper here. You know, through the years, I had much support from the boards, the different board members. But I want to mention the superintendent who hired me, Bill Bristow. He's the one who really taught me so much about this community. He's the one who encouraged me to become a principal. I didn't want to become an administrator. Actually, I love teaching. In fact, before I retired, I went back to the classroom for a couple of years. I just had to go back. But anyway, Bill came up to me one day and he said, Ike, I want you to know that I already have enrolled you at an intern program at Sacramento State. And he didn't ask me if I wanted to do it. He said, I already did it. And it touched my heart that he had so much confidence in me that he would do that. And so that's how I became a principal. But other board members through the years also have supported me. And I just wanted to share, Steve, your dad was on the school board for many years too. And I found this article that he wrote. And since Emil was on the selection committee, I just wanted to read this article from the Brentwood Press, Letters to the Editor, September the 8th, 2000. And the headline says, Ike Montanez and Emil Geddes deserve praise. Dear editor, it was an extreme pleasure to see you honor Isaac Montanez and Emil Geddes on your school's page. I've known Ike and Emil just about all my life here in Brentwood. They are two of the best good guys who represent all things that Brentwood education has to offer to our community. So I don't know if I made you a copy anyway, so you can.
I'll take a copy.
Did you know you wrote that?
I did.
Yeah. Well, in closing, I just want to say that because I keep telling everybody, it's such a humbling experience. I did not expect it. You know, I already have a library named after me. And when the committee tweaked me into having lunch with them, I said, you know, isn't there someone else who can name the school? I have a library. And Dana said, oh, you can keep your library, but we need to have a school named after you. So here's what being humble means. Being humble means recognizing that we are not on earth to see how important we can become, but to see how much difference we can make in the lives of others. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a quick picture here, and then we're going to break for cake, and we invite you all to stick around for cake. Mr. Montanez, if we could get you to come over here. We'll also get Danielle to come up so we can take a picture with you in it as well. And then the meeting isn't over. You're welcome to stay. Come for the dedication, stay for the budget report, which will follow right after. So just hang on.
Scott, Steve. Scott, Steve.
Oh, okay.
All right, ready? Get in like yes.
start back up in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay, we are going to start back up in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Remember, all of you are welcome to stay for the budget presentation, but 2 minutes we're going to start back up. Okay, we are going to start back up here as we still have some agenda items to get to. So if you want to take your cake and have a seat, or take your cake and go, that's fine too. We want to thank so many of you for coming out tonight. And again, be thinking around September is probably when we'll be looking for that dedication to celebrate officially as we come out. So, all right.
All right, we are back. Give folks a few more moments to wrap up their conversations and head on over to their seat or over into the hall over there. So
You
we
can
move
take your
on.
cake and eat it too.
Yeah, this is where you can take your cake and eat it too. Thank you. So, hey, principals. What's up? You ready to head on out? Go home early? Well, you have the option to stay, or you have the option to have some free time.
Free time.
Your choice. Your choice.
It's time to go home and go to sleep.
I said I was sure they would all stay. Yeah, they would all choose to stay.
I'm still here.
Thank you, Lisa and Joe.
Enjoy. Enjoy. Thank you for all that you do. We really appreciate it. You know where to find us if you need us. All right. So moving us along, because I know the others would like to get home at some point this evening. Let's move on to item number 10.3, Human Resources Staffing Update.
Good evening, board. I'd like to thank Nicole for having cake for the HR update. I really appreciate it. So I'm sorry that none of my friends and family are sticking around for this report. Duly noted. So tonight, board, I just wanted to bring to you where we're at staffing wise, and really to acknowledge the hard work of the HR team, but also of our principals who just left the building and the vice principals that do this work. We've hired over 140 people since for this school year, starting back when we hired our new vice principals back in February. And then that continued on throughout March, April, and May, and June, and July. And so I just want to give you some of those numbers because it's pretty impressive. 62 new certificated staff members, 78 new classified staff members. Within the certificated staff there, you see that 22 of them had multiple subject credentials, 7 of them are middle school teachers, 14 special education teachers, 10 vice principals, 3 psychologists, 2 SLPs, 2 principals, 1 counselor, 1 program specialist. I know I sound like I'm singing the 12 Days of Christmas here, but it's incredibly impressive. I did cast this and I apologize, it just went off. I'll explain. Yeah, absolutely. 58 aides and campus supervisors, 6 food service employees, 5 secretaries, 1 custodian, 1 groundskeeper, a craftsman, 1 purchasing agent, 1 BCBA. That's a board certified behavior analyst. And so working with our special needs students, 1 occupational therapist and 1 nutrition specialist. The rest are our substitutes that we continue to expand so that when someone is out, that we have someone to back them up. We have 189 teacher substitutes, 112 aide substitutes, so many of them are currently being employed as we've added more. But I do want to acknowledge we also hired a CBO and a director of special education. So the numbers are really, really impressive, and that doesn't happen by itself. That happens because of a great team, and it happens because of the support of principals and vice principals out there interviewing, as well as directors. And so the most expensive thing that we do, in my opinion, is to interview. It requires a lot of people in a room, taking up a lot of time. And those are expensive people who are taken away from sites. And so to be able to do this at this magnitude is really, really impressive. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you. Of those teachers that were hired, 2/3 of them are teachers with experience. And I think that is unique and something that we're seeing as a growing district, as a district that does not have declining enrollment. We're seeing a change in the workforce there, and we're still able to attract high quality teachers to our positions. It's incredibly difficult to attract special education teachers, music teachers, psychologists, and SLPs. And although we have some positions that are still open, we were able to do that. We currently have 2 special ed openings. We also have a counselor opening because we promoted a vice principal or a counselor to a vice principal position. And we still have 6 openings or 7 openings for SLPs. We're continuing to fill those campus supervisors. We have actually 20 applicants right now, and we're onboarding more people. And so a lot of work to be done still, but we've made some great efforts. Any questions?
Go ahead.
There's 10 vice principals, but we have 11 schools. Is there a school that doesn't have a vice principal?
No. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear. We hired 10 new vice principals. So all of the elementary schools got a vice principal, right? And so Pioneer already had a vice principal. So there were 7 additional elementary, and then 2 new vice principals at Adams Middle School, 1 new vice principal at Edna Hill.
So Pioneer already had 1.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The math does not work if you do it that way. You're absolutely right. So it was overall all of our new vice principals.
Chris, I was just wondering if you could give a super brief job description of what a craftsman does.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So a craftsman is basically one of our maintenance team. And so our team has to be multifaceted. So a craftsman needs to be able to be highly skilled. So they need to be able to do hang doors. They need to be able to have AC background, just electrical background, right? Okay. And so
who's the
correct.
Who has a plumbing business and out of Durant.
Correct. Yep.
He's very multi-skilled.
Yep.
That's our craftsman?
That's our new craftsman. Yeah, we just hired Leonard Cansamilla.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not a new position. We have 3 maintenance workers. And so this is replacing a person that retired. We actually have 4, excuse me. 4 craftsmen. 4 craftsmen. Yep.
All right. Well, board, this is the information update. So we have no other questions. I'll move us along to item number 10.4, BOSD Board Priority Goal Update, Implement Best Practices.
Let's see if I can cast a volleyball.
Right. Good evening, Board of Education. So I am here to do an update on our board priority goals, specifically one of the 4 areas that you have. These are, again, those 4 areas, and I'm going to focus tonight on implementing best practices in all our classrooms and utilizing research-based continuums, providing professional development and formative assessment. So I want to start just with a little data. This is our achievement data from the SBAC that was administered not this past spring, but the previous year in 2022. The state has not released our scores yet for 2023. This data shows that we are achieving at what the state calls the medium level for English language arts and low level for math. We are slightly above standard in language arts, 4.9 points, and quite a bit below standard in math, 27.5. We really took a hit with COVID and distance learning in our math area, and we know that. That's why we put some focus there. You can also see there some of the groups listed and where actually the number of groups in each category from very low to very high, and I'll show you those groups right here. So these are the groups in English language arts and in mathematics that scored either low or very low. So you can see there are some of the same groups across both English language arts and math, with the only difference really being that our Pacific Islander group also shows up as low in mathematics. This screen also shows the points below standard and the number of students that were tested on the SBAC. This is a report that shows one of the other assessments we use is the Formative Assessment System, or FAST, and this is for English language arts. This is our data for last year from fall to winter. My goal when I come back and present to you an update on this report in January is that I'll show you fall to winter for this year so you can see a comparison. What it shows is that we had 60%, so that's that 37% and 23% that made either typical growth or aggressive growth. Both of those are really good. The modest growth we'd like to see moved more into the typical growth, and the flat growth obviously is not what we want to see. We want students progressing. Typical growth really means a year's growth in a year's time. So that's what that is. Here's some data from our IXL math from last year. And again, my goal is when I come back in January to show you how we're doing in winter of 2023. A couple things to note there. In grades 2 through 5, it shows it shows 51% on or above. On the SBAC test, just as a comparison, 2 different tests, but we're more like 40%. And here we're 50%. And definitely we can see that we have some areas to address in middle school math because some of those percentages kind of flip, right?
Do we have that many students in the kind of remedial math program, 38%?
So good question, Emil. In our middle school math program, we no longer have a below level course. That course is Yeah, so the reason for that is because a number of years ago we looked at the data around that below level course, and 0% of students were making good growth in that course, so we eliminated it. The data and the best practices really show they should be in a grade level appropriate course for them. That differentiating and coursifying isn't effective. So we moved them all into the grade level course, and then we do have an above level math course at the middle school level. Here's our goals. So you'll be able to see how we're doing when I come back in January, but we do want to increase to all students at least 10 points above standard in ELA and decrease the amount of points below standard in math, and really look at moving every group from very low, move them up one level, the students that are in the very low and low. And then we also have some targets in FAST and IXL, so decrease that modest and flat total growth by at least 5% and decrease the below and far below by at least 5%. Just a reminder, Kirsten shared this when she did her presentation on attendance, that we are this year as a district in what's considered differentiated assistance. That is an accountability level from the state. The reason we're there in one nutshell largely has to do with our absenteeism. There are other factors, but if we were to increase our decrease our absenteeism rate and our chronic absenteeism across the board and across our various schools and groups, we would be removed from differentiated assistance. So that's just a little reminder there. So what are some of the things we're doing? So this is what we call our best practices document. This document contains some areas that we're focused on as a district to improve academic outcomes. There's a list there of activities and strategies that teachers would use both before, during, and after lessons. Each one of those items that are listed there are based on research that shows those are effective and worthwhile practices. And you can see all the ones that are in blue there have links. Those links take teachers to either professional development, documents that explain what that is and outline and describe what, for example, integrated ELD is, and just other supports and tools for them. One of the big supports that is found in those links is what we call our continuums of practice. These are documents that outline it's a little hard to read, but if you, that top screen is a set of descriptors of what a teacher should engage in around implementing learning targets. And it goes from when they're just exploring that concept to becoming more proficient and then really expanding their skills. So this is a good guide for a teacher to say, okay, what can I focus on in implementing in this case, it's learning targets. We have other continuums of practice for other areas of instruction. The top half of that is focused on what the teacher does, and that section that's orange on my screen but yellow on the yellowish on the wall is what students should be doing when a teacher's implementing learning targets. So this is a good guide to help our staff know what to implement around specific areas of best practices. We also have infographics which describe what that looks like. So this is a one-page graphic that shows what is a learning target. It gives an example. It talks about why learning targets are important. It talks about some aspects that should be found when using learning targets, and then defines that learning target. Here's some of the things we're doing professional development wise. So that document I shared with you with our best practices. This year, we have asked sites to pick their area of focus from it. So some sites have a site-wide focus. Some have allowed their teacher groups to pick. So second grade might be focused on learning targets, whereas third grade could be focused on collaborative conversations. So they are owning their own site best practice area, and we're providing support. And that support looks like professional development in a variety of ways. Use of our professional development days, which have been focused on our new adoptions and some of those best practices. And then those next four areas, Hagerty, Yale Institute, building thinking classrooms, building fact fluency, are voluntary but paid professional development that teachers can participate in to build their background and improve their skills. We're also around the area of formative assessment. We're implementing this year, we started a little bit last year, but what are called the interim assessment blocks, which are a smaller component of the SBAC. The SBAC, as you know, is an end of the year summative assessment. These IABs are little checks along the way. So teachers can administer an assessment and find out how their students are doing towards that end goal of proficiency on the SBAC test. This website is from the state, and it also comes with a set of tools for teachers. So these are lessons, strategies that are directly aligned to the results they're getting on those assessments. So really it's that, okay, how our students are doing, this is what the assessment shows. Here's some tools I can use to build their skill, either whole class or differentiated by group. We started this training last year with cohort 1. We're continuing to provide support for that group and building out additional trainings as the year goes on. So how will we be measuring our impact? Obviously at the site level, our principals are doing classroom observations, and really want to thank the board for approving the vice principals, which is allowing principals and vice principals to get in classrooms more and see what's going on and be aware of where the needs are and where the supports are. Obviously, we'll look at how things are going with teachers through teacher evaluation. They also have an action plan that each principal has developed around actually all 4 of the priority areas, but they have a focus area there around best practices. And then looking at how their professional development and our professional development is going. So an exit slip is basically feedback after the professional development. At the district level, we'll be looking at those scores, and I'll be coming back in January to see how we're doing in comparison to the scores I shared with you today, both in SBAC, FAST, and IXL. Oh, I keep saying January, but I think it's February. I just gave myself another month. Yeah. Any questions from the board?
I just have a question. I think it would be great at some point this school year for me to maybe hear from the teachers who are implementing some of these best practices to see how their experience has been and some of the things that they're seeing in the classroom working. I would just be interested to get some feedback live.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, well, that was the information update. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate that. Keep up the great work, and look forward to the update on how things are working. Next up, we have item number 10.5, Measure B project update.
Good evening. Okay, thank you. I was thinking it's too bad everybody left, because this is now has a school. We're going to talk about the new school. And Robert.
So anyway, tonight we're going to do a quick update on Measure B. Mostly we have, if you haven't looked, there's some really fantastic photos of the Isaac R. Montanez School moving forward. So thank you. And John Navarro, who I believe you all know, who was one of his students the first year he ever taught here. Yeah, and so John's gonna narrate the slides since he really is there all the time, and then I'll end up the presentation. So it says Lone Tree Site construction progress, but really, as we know, we now have an official name, so that's very exciting. And these are slides from, just so you know, so they start on June 20th and to September 1st. So not that much time.
Yeah, it's really just a quick time lapse of project since the ribbon cutting or the groundbreaking, and just shows how fast progress is being made. Because we have to have the school open next school year, and they're making great progress. But it just kind of shows, the level of the work, and then the short durations between the different activities, which is a good thing to see. So going from the foundations, next, they got ready for these slabs where you put the moisture barriers down and the rock, and then following that, the slab pours happen. And again, you can see just a quick time frame. Not much longer after the slabs were down, they started erecting the walls. They had been pre-framing the walls on site well before they started digging the foundation. So majority of the walls were all ready to stand up once the slabs were down. And then it's just a progression of the walls continue going up, getting the scaffold up around to start doing the perimeter of the building, and then getting to the roof structure, basically getting to a point where we dried in. The whole focus is again trying to beat winter. I mean, that's our enemy right now. So the whole goal is to get the building weather tight, get the roofs on. They're working on getting the wrapping of the exterior siding and putting the windows in, because we all know that we're projecting rain soon.
Yeah.
So the more they can get done before the rains hit means they can have a nice long work of winter inside the building, and that's the goal. Unfortunately, a lot of times, we don't have that luxury, and we have to build through the winter time, and that's how most of our schools have gone. So if we can get a majority of the work done before winter, that'd be great. On the inside, you can see they're already hanging in the duct work, fire sprinkler lines, roughing it for the plumbing for the sewer and sinks, and all the low voltage.
And we had the honor of two board members, Board Member Geddes and Board Member Douchinson, and John gave us a really nice tour of the site.
It is amazing.
It's really impressive.
Yeah. And we would have probably brought it up at the beginning of the meeting, but since it was going to be part of Measure B, didn't comment. But it was a great tour. And to see that change in this design, if you haven't been really familiar with this design, you really should look at it, I believe, from a pragmatic point of view, with air conditioning and heating, and the doors are all in one hallway, so the loss isn't there. It's much more efficient. It's just beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I think it's still beautiful.
It's a beautiful school, and it's going to be very functional. I think what gets lost in all that is how efficient the building is. I mean, the building is really efficient. It's very cost effective.
Look down the hallway and see if anyone's in the hallway.
Yep, great for supervision, great for after hours activities, able to isolate portions of the building. So, we're all excited already to have the ribbon cutting and move in.
Yeah.
Maybe I stand at 10 minutes if I don't take my meds.
Okay, yeah, and then the other projects from Measure B that happened over the summer was, there's been the security camera upgrade. It's mostly completed. We hope to have it done by the end of September. It's at all the sites. It's a real big project at Adams Middle School. In the summer, they worked on the upper field drainage, and then you just approved the contract for the lower field drainage project at Adams, which will be done over the break.
Yep, coming break.
And then just also during summer, Brentwood Elementary received a stage technology upgrades, and Bristow Middle School, which was sort of part of the theater project, continued with the fire lane replacement, seal coat to the parking lot, and some asphalt extension.
John, I know as it's impossible to predict with weather and so forth. What should the board expect when we open school in July of next year with the school? Where should we expect that school to be?
So the contract is written that what we call the elementary school portion, which I don't know if you can pull up the little map on one of those pictures, but basically it's we call the admin building area A. So you see A1, A2, and then the B1, B2. That's the elementary portion, and that's what the contract is to have completed the end of June. And that would include the front parking lot, the side parking lot, the prominent grass field, and all the hardcore areas. What isn't in that initial completion phase is the middle school, the gym, and those classrooms, and the auxiliary parking lot and grass field along Big Basin. So that's kind of the phase two, and that was the alternate. That was do we build it now? Do we build it later? And it's not needed for the school opening, but that's where the contractor will be migrating, next spring and summer to that area. To focus on getting what we need operational. And that's what we keep emphasizing, because they're building the whole school. But we always tell them if there's an issue, manpower, material wise, we don't need the middle school portion. Focus your forces on that. And they've understood that loud and clear. From where we started and where we are, things can change, but they've made great progress. We're in great shape. If they can get a lot of it dried in before winter, it's going to make a huge difference. The things that we're worried about right now, which are, you always worry about stuff, but weather, bad winter could slow things down. And the second worst thing is electrical equipment and PG&E. So, electrical switchgear are horrendous lead times, and then getting PG&E to hook it up once it arrives. And right now we're tracking, the springtime for that, but that's where, slippage could come into play. And already because of that, they're already talking about what do we have to do if we have to bring in generators to start up HVAC units to test everything and get everything operational. So just because of the way things are going, with vendors and agencies that we really can't control, they're already thinking about contingency plans. If that is to happen right now, it doesn't look like that, but we're not going to wait till the end to find out if something comes up.
Yeah.
For the opening, would we expect aesthetic things like landscaping, finish work, and all of that to be completed on the side?
You're correct. On the side that we're opening up, that would be completed. So it kind of. It's kind of the main driveway loop entry is on the middle school side. So there would be a kind of a break right there in front of the gym. That would be that's the second, portion. Even though they may be working on it, it's the building itself, I believe, will be very mostly done and it'll be finished, aesthetically. But that's kind of like the contractor is going to be migrating that way. They're going to have to move, and set up their whole camp, for construction, where that future parking lot and playfield will happen. When it comes to the landscaping, particularly the sod work, we require, sod. So it's, one day it's dirt, the next day it's grass, so it makes a dramatic change when you do that. Now, when the olden days when they seeded things, and you waited 6 months to look good, and by that time it was a weed patch, and it was hard to say you're done with the school when it was just a bunch of dirt.
Yeah, one of the other things that the board directed us to do was to work closely with the city around traffic safety and so forth, and we've been having meetings there. And I think that's another place where the city isn't as far along as where they thought they would be at this point. And so I think it's likely, it's almost a given that we're going to open without a traffic signal there on Lone Tree. And so while some of the widening will be done on our side, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge of an opening getting there. So we have a portion of the road that we're doing, and we're continuing to work with them. But if you're living out there, it's going to be you'll be impacted the first year or so as that's coming through and people are finding their way. Yeah. So
I mean, essentially, when you look at Smith Road, the district is building what would be a typical road, 2-lane road, and then the other part is the city piece. So we have control over, at least a two-way street, and then it doesn't restrict until you get to the corner of Lone Tree Way where the traffic signal and the property owner that the city's got to work with to widen it
I've been
there.
hearing those conversations. It's been going on for a while. Huh? Yeah, I don't think we're close to a resolution on that just yet. Okay.
Why wouldn't the city make it a priority?
I think I don't know that I would say that they aren't making it a priority. I think what gets complicated out there is part of how it gets funded is through the development of that area. And there's a development that's going in on the north side of Lone Tree that has an impact because as part of their mitigation, they're required to pay for the signal and pay for part of the widening. And so I believe that some of the other complications that the city's had with that developer and with developers around the city have made that a little bit more challenging at this point. So they're working through. But I think we've all seen is once we get out there and the school is open, the needs will be very clear out there, and I think everybody will be motivated to get moving on it. And so we're trying to meet with them to talk about that motivation now.
That part. All right. Well, another information update. Any other questions, board? All right. Thank you so very much. Keep up the great work. Okay. Well, keep in contact with the weather gods. Hopefully things keep steady. All right. Next up, item number 10.6, the approval of unaudited actuals.
Yes, so tonight, it's coming, but tonight is the unaudited actuals for the 22-23 fiscal year, which ended on June 30th of 2023. And so what the process is, as you may remember, on the 22-23 budget, so it ends on June 30th, and the board we're already into the new fiscal year 23-24. But in July and August, the district closes the fiscal year books. And so, everything from June is paid. A lot of revenues come in from the state that, although maybe we're due earlier in the year, show up like the day, like June 29th, because it's, it's like journaled and transferred. So all those are booked. And then what we come up with is we've closed the books, and that's what our unaudited actuals are. They're at the board tonight. And then our auditors, our independent financial auditors, they come in and they do an annual independent audit, which the board approves every January. So that's the beginning and end of one fiscal year. And Melissa Guzman is here tonight. For those of you who know, I'm sure you all know Melissa. So she is the financial services coordinator for the district, and she is responsible for the significant amount of really detailed work. It takes a lot of dedicated focus, and her whole team have worked really hard to make this happen because it's so much. It's just an incredible amount of details, entry, balance, and as you know, any who worked in finance. So I just want to give a big appreciation for her and her team. All right, so what we're going to do is look first at what we call the unrestricted revenues. And the budget is separated, as you know, into unrestricted and restricted sides. So the unrestricted funds are most of the general operating funds for the fund that runs our schools. And they're not subject to all the special constraints. So if you take a look, and what we're doing is the unrestricted estimated actuals, those were presented in June with your adopted budget. There were two sides. You were shown what we thought the books would close with, and this is now the actuals that we closed. And I think actually the interesting thing to note in unrestricted revenues is that 97% is the local control funding formula. That is most of what we get. The other state is 2%. So, and the material changes really are on the other state revenues. We did end up getting an additional $564,000 that we booked in lottery. And again, it has to do with the state releases them quarterly, like your lottery apportionments. And so when they come in June, it's also based on how much they've made, like for the year. And so that is why we have an increase, because the state took in some good lottery revenues. All districts got an increase. The other piece is what we call all local, and that's almost 1.2 million. And what that is, for example, 700,000 of that was some insurance money that the district got for some Cray water damage back in spring of 2022. So it's booked as an other local revenue, but it was offsetting some expenditures. We also had an increase, which is pretty typical. All the rental for facility leases, they all come together in June. We get a lot covering, say, the last 3 to 4 months. So that went up 275,000. Interest went up 140,000. So there is an increase in other local revenue, and your total increase for the unrestricted is 1.6 million.
So the headline there is we're doing.
Yeah. So again, what it's interesting because at estimated actuals, you haven't closed the books and you haven't gotten all your revenues. So the thing about working with a state budget, it's unlike private industry. It's sometimes you don't know what you're going to get until you get. So as the lottery fund rep, but it is good news because we do want more lottery than we budgeted. So yes.
Damage, that's replacement money.
So that's not new money, but it was money that was spent in the previous fiscal year in the unrestricted fund. So it's a payback, but it's always better to have a plus on that side. And on expenditures, again, it goes through all the changes from June to now when we close the books. Again, I think the things to note are, for example, the certificated classified salaries and benefits are 89% of the costs, which is what it should be because we are in the business of education. So our people are the main where we put our money. As far as changes from the estimated to the unaudited, I think just in the salaries, we added some summer session and there were increased substitute costs throughout the year that were booked. And if you look at employee benefits, I've listed, there's a variety. It's basically all the components. There were some changes in all of them. And so there was a decrease. Utilities, went up. That's pretty predictable. We don't know the exact budget. We estimate what it's going to cost for the year, and then we get them in month by month. So the total in unrestricted expenditures, it went up 115,000. And really just this slide, it just shows you the change in the ending fund balance on the unrestricted side. And I think the important things are just to note the beginning fund balance is always the same, right? I mean, whether it's from May, June, or when we close the books. And so if you go to the very bottom, the difference is the ending fund balance did end 1.9 million higher than what we thought at estimated actuals. Although I was reading the budget lines, and prior to estimated actuals, we had originally thought we would have more at the end. So again, every budget report, first interim, second interim, estimated actuals, finally on unaudited actuals, you have the real number. It's again, state budgeting. You're just following it as it comes in, the revenues and the expenditures. Again, we already looked at what the revenue expenditures were. So if you look at there's a difference of 1.5 million increase overall in unrestricted. And you get to 1.9 because we also decreased what we call the contribution to special education, because when you see on the restricted expenditures, we had less expenses than we had budgeted for in non-public agency expenditures. So any questions on that? Okay. And then the restricted budget, again, so restricted accounts include special education, all our federal, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, all that one-time ESSER money. There's a lot of one-time state money, all that COVID money, it all fits into that category. And you can only spend it on what's legally allowable in each different account. So, again, so what's different is, for example, on revenues, 73% of the revenues in restricted come from federal and other state, and LCFF is very little. So it's sort of the balance of where the money comes in, and that's why it's restricted, because you're spending it out based on what the law was passed, the money was appropriated, and comes to schools. The main material changes. So under federal, from estimated to unaudited actuals, it shows that we had a reduction of 483,000. But what that means is we didn't spend it all, because in those restricted funds, it doesn't all have to be spent in 1 year. So it's deferred to 23, 24 in these different areas. The other state went up a lottery because there's restricted and unrestricted went up. And the other piece is the arts material instructional supplies block grant. This is a perfect example of state funding, because in first interim last year, you had it booked at a certain amount. At second interim, it was cut in half because the governor had said at the May revise, we're going to cut in half. Well, then when he signed the budget into law on July 1st, he brought it back to 94%. So the good news is we have more money again, but that's why sometimes you see variances, and it's not that the budget practice isn't consistent. It's just you're following the actuals. And then the other, I think, big component of a change on the restricted side is what we call all other local. So again, this is really good because CalShape, the district, did a grant for its heating and ventilation, and we received the money. And it's $1.2 million. And it's going to go, there was a long grant, it was written, and so that money's coming in, and it's going to go to more specific projects that are, it's actually, I pulled this out because I was like, just hold on, I know it's called California Schools Healthy Air Plumbing and Efficiency Program. And it provides funding to upgrade heating and air conditioning and ventilation, so we can use this money for our HVAC. But that's a big piece of that amount of money.
Who actually applied for that?
We did. Robin Schmidt wrote it with a consultant, and we used RGM Kramer. So it was a combination. And there is a second round of funding that we're hoping to apply for also. Yeah.
Did this stem from COVID and the need for schools to have to update their HVAC stuff? I know those are challenges. Is that what? Okay.
The air filter.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this is a new restricted fund because we're out of all the COVID funds. So yeah, it's significant. I know.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So
where does it show the restricted revenues that we spend more in sped than we receive from the Fed?
So it doesn't show it because it's a combination of all.
Yeah.
But if you'd like for example, at first interim, we can sort of show you the revenue. It's really easy. I could add a slide that shows.
Sped, but whatever.
Yeah, no, but for SPED, it's really great because SPED is such a big expense. I mean, a needed expense, but you could show revenues, expenditures, and then the district contribution because it's running around 68%. countywide, which is general fund money supporting the program. So, but it's not pulled out in this. But I could, if you wanted to, I could.
I think it would be good.
Okay, we do it already. Okay.
We'll do it at first.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good to watch because as the contribution increases, or anyway, yes. All right. So restricted expenditures. Again, just a minute. There we are. We have, again, salaries and, benefits. The main things are books and supplies. We had an increased expenditure because we actually paid all the bills for the science curriculum that you heard about earlier. So, for example, it went up $1 million because we paid the bills. Same thing sort of all around as you look at services and everything. And the one thing, though, when you talk about special education, where it says services and other operating expenditures, there was a decrease of $670,000. It's because we didn't spend everything that was budgeted for non-public agency support in special ed. And you don't know until you've paid out all those invoices how that looks. And then the ending fund balance, again, we began with 6 million and we're ending with 11.7 million. Again, it's a lot. These are all restricted programs. They're designated based on federal and state guidelines or local donors. And then we always want to just, remember, we call it the combined revenues and the combined expenses. That's really the whole district budget for Fund 1. So, for example, and then that it's broken out by restricted and unrestricted. So our combined revenues were 4.5 million, but they're broken out, and we just reviewed those in detail. Same thing with expenditures. The combined expenditures for the closing of the books is 132 million. The change is it went up $1 million, but as you can see, it's broken down by the two unrestricted and restricted sides. Then we look at the combined ending fund balance, and we close the books at the ending fund balance of 19.7. And really, if you look at the two bottom arrows, it's a combination of your unrestricted ending fund balance and your restricted ending fund balance. And above that, where it says components of ending fund balance, so all the lines above the first green arrow, those are all the unrestricted components. So you have the 3% required reserve, a 1.25% board required reserve, and then the money that goes into sites and LCAP money that's part of the unrestricted reserve, but it's already designated for next year. Any questions on that? And then the other funds, we have all these other funds that we use that I think I talked about before, how they are, most of them you can't transfer from one to the other. They're, again, basically restricted funds by the state. They have legal requirements for spending, especially like Fund 21. Only can be used on the bond, can't be moved anywhere else. Fund 13, cafeteria fund, they have 6.4 million ending fund balance, which is phenomenal. And it has to do with all these one-time grants they got, kitchen infrastructure and training grants, moving that we're going to be cooking by scratch or semi-scratch 40% of our food. So over the course of the next 3 years, there's a lot of equipment coming in, and the department actually has to create a budget and share it with the state in order even to save that money. So it's all planned out for, we're going to have we already have great food, but we're going to have even better food for our students. So that's really exciting. So these are just what we looked at the ending fund balances for this year.
Any questions, board?
No.
Well, thank you for a thorough report. This is a action item. So we are being asked to consider the approval of the unaudited actuals.
I move that we approve item 10.6, the unaudited actuals.
I second. I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Moving us right along to item number 10.7, the approval of resolution 2023-19.
This is an annual resolution you're required to approve each year. The GAN limit is actually part of the unaudited actuals, but you're required to do a separate resolution and approve it separately.
Okay.
Move that we approve item 10.7, resolution number 2023-19.
Second.
Ooh, first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item number 10.8, approval of resolution 2023-20.
So, board, this is the resolution that accompanies the open hearing that you reviewed earlier. And so, have any questions additional from Michael? It's just adopting that resolution.
All righty.
I move that we approve the resolution 2023-20.
I'll second.
All right, have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving us right along to item 10.9.
Yeah, this is approval of our student calendars, 2024-2025 school year and the 2025-2026 school year. Our process is to gather input from our employee partners, and we look at the Liberty District calendar because of transportation and ensure that we have the right instructional minutes. Our team this year was made up of Lynn Grisham, Brian Jones, Nisha Shedd, Tanny Varnum, Natasha Gerardo, and Michael Bowen. And I just want to make sure I give them a shout out because we did a lot of hard work there. So we're looking at approving for the next 2 years.
Okay, and before we put a motion out there, I think there's an opportunity to consider maybe grouping 10.9 and through 10.14.
We can't group them together, but when Chris goes over 10.10 to 10.14, he'll just kind of introduce them globally, but you will have to pass them individually. It's
Got
required
it.
for Ed Code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies. All right.
I had
So
a quick question on the calendars. We're missing a day of winter break on both years that we typically have. I'm just curious why.
But basically because we have 180 days of school, right? And then also to balance out the quarters and the semesters. And then the other issue is balancing out our adjusted days. And so we take a look a lot at that and try to figure out how to balance it.
Okay.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. I did freak out, Steve. This is the first time I did this, and I couldn't figure out why one of the quarters was 60 days long. And I forgot I just needed to move the March break. So yeah, it's definitely a struggle. When one puts us we come back really early in that second year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It makes us very happy in the community chest, though, to go deep into December on that Friday and be able to hold that event.
Good
I'll make a
question.
motion that we approve 10.9, the school calendars for 24-25, 25-26.
Second.
All right, have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 10.10, approval of staffing increase.
Yeah, I'm coming to you to increase the staffing of our speech and language pathologists. Our caseloads have increased, and so we're adding 1.5 speech and language pathologists and then a 1.0 speech and language pathologist aide. And basically an aide can do everything a speech and language pathologist can do except for the assessment. And so that's a way to reduce our costs, but also be able to support our kids because of the increased caseload.
And Chris, with the items that you have there through 10.14, you want to just give a quick overview? Then if anybody has any question, otherwise they can pass them.
Absolutely. 10.11, 10.12, 10.13, and 10.14 all have to do with credentialing processes. And so in this case, it is either a speech and language teacher, a single subject teacher, or a provisional permit, and then an administrative service waiver. And so all these folks are employees of ours that are working on credentials and in process. And so CTC requires us to vote on these individually.
Yep. So I will call these out for motions individually. So starting with item number 10.10, can I have a motion, please?
I'll take a motion on 10.10, approval of staffing increase.
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move that we approve item 10.11,
All right.
provisional intern permit.
Second.
First and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Move that we approve item 10.12, approval of speech and language waiver.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and a second.
So moved.
Wait. I have an item. So I have a first and a second for item number 10.12. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll make a motion that we approve a multi-subject waiver.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 10.14, approval of administrative services waiver.
I make a motion, we approve it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I want you to know that I did say I was pretty sure that we could put those on consent or all together, and Nicole told me that we could not.
Okay.
And I said, look it up, and she did, and she was right. So,
Yay!
so she saved us from having to do it again. But sorry.
We did it.
Okay.
I was not going to say that.
All right. 10.15, the approval of contract with Consortium Consulting, Inc.
Yeah, our healthcare premiums have continued to rise in the Brentwood School District. We've seen increases over the last few years, and we've asked our insurance provider to go back out, and we realized quickly that there's a conflict of interest when they do that because no one's going to provide a better price than they are because they're not really asking for it, right? And so there's they're going to always paint themselves in the best picture. It's kind of like walking into Safeway and asking for the best price meat. They're always going to say that we have it, right? And so we're working with this, I'm asking you to approve this, to work with this consortium consulting group, who's a nonprofit that goes out and works throughout the state of California to look at health insurance and provide it for school districts and possibly changing to a different JPA. And so, and a different insurance group.
Do they actually do that? Oh, go ahead. No, please.
I noticed that the fee structure on that is a pretty wide range. Is it just based solely on hours worked, or?
So it's 30,000 for the first phase, which is to go out and look at our data, find out where the best fit is, and then go out and find us an organization. The second phase is an additional 20,000, and that is to write up the contract, negotiate that, put that together. The final phase of that is an additional, I think, 23,000, and that phase is to actually onboard every district employee because that would require us to ask for all of their information all over again, right? So every documentation. And so obviously our department could not do that on its own. So they would facilitate that.
Okay.
And also, I was just going to say, so phase 1, 2, and 3 would be done this year, and phase 4 implementation would be next fiscal year.
Okay.
Just because we can't, if we go and move it, we wouldn't implement it till next year.
So they actually negotiate for us at some point, and that's all they want. I mean, I'm not trying to
So,
spend
well,
our money, but it seems fairly reasonable for.
they're an organization that's been around for 25 years, the same,
right.
and they do this. Like, for example, at Lafayette School District, where I came from the year before I came, we were actually with the CSIG medical, and they hired checkers to come in and do this, and you have these health benefit meetings. And so our health benefit rates were quite a bit less in Lafayette. Acalanes Union High School District did it. They actually started in Kern County, County Office of Education. So it's, again, they're a nonprofit. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
I mean, still.
Yes, we think.
Yeah, just to add to that, we've been working with our employee partners and had some training through BTA, brought in an organization through CTC the California Teachers Association, CTA. And so we did some training, and this was one of the things that they recommended was to work with Checkers, and then Checkers recommended this organization for us.
Great. Sounds great. I'll make a motion. We approve the contract with Consortium Consulting, Inc.
I second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 11, board member comment or future agenda items.
I have something. Education, workforce, housing. Has the county contacted you about that?
No, I know they hosted a webinar, and I know that I spoke with Eric afterwards because he went for it and looked at that.
Yeah.
So you're looking for something to come back?
You want more information about it?
If we're going to be participating in that.
That if that's something that the board wants to look at, I'd be happy to send out information.
Yeah, or even people who work in our district, and I think it's going to be including maybe people from other surrounding school districts that could participate in this education, workforce, housing. Like their employees could also be in this education, workforce, housing. So Just thinking about how to deal with the teacher shortage. That's one way to.
Can we start with maybe a future agenda item being just information like what it is, just to ground us as a board on that?
Sure, I would need to get up to speed on it too. That's
Okay.
not something that I'm an expert in, but maybe an interim step is for me to get some information from the county to send it out to everybody.
Okay.
And then we can talk about if there's something in there that struck people as something wanting to bring back. Does that seem okay, Twee?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one?
And I feel yucky even bringing this up, but other school districts are constantly being inundated with people asking for the transgender student policy. Do we have one?
Do we have a
where the school district must tell the parents that their student is, say, going by another name or is transgender in the classroom, and then the school district has to tell the parents. Do we have that kind of policy?
No, we don't have that policy.
I didn't think so either, but I see it being brought up at school board meetings across the state.
Yeah, so there are some districts that have made the news where the board has put forward a policy that goes against what the state has recommended, what the state attorney general has recommended, what the state superintendent of instruction has recommended. And so, but our policy follows what's recommended by the state attorney general and the board of education and the state superintendent of instruction. In addition, we have community celebrations and other acts that meet the requirements of the FAIR Act. That's a lot of the focus of what that is as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just have a request maybe for the upcoming meeting on October 25th. If we can, you may have this on your radar, but just have some more student presentations come through.
We have those scheduled for the
Perfect.
year. So usually at the beginning of every year, because we have 12 schools, we like to split it up. So we typically have 6 presentations a year. And so those will come, it might be October that they're started. I think they do start there.
Perfect.
We'd like to give them a couple weeks to kind of get going. Yeah.
I figured as
Yeah.
much. All right, cool. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. You got anything?
I'll be in London on the 25th.
What?
And
We're going to London? No.
After being there 2.5 weeks in Europe, and so.
Okay, we'll zoom you in. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
All right, so we come to our next regular scheduled board meeting will be on October 25th. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn tonight's
Motion
meeting?
to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you. Good night, everybody.